Picture yourself walking into this empty university lecture hall. Down at the front of the room, sitting on a wooden desk, there is a single physical object, an ancient terracotta vase. If you look closely at it, you can point out several distinct things. There is the physical clay itself. There are the painted black figures. There is the quantity, exactly 1. And then there is the invisible thought of the vase, currently forming in your mind. We use the exact same verb to describe all of these states. We say the clay exists, the painted shape exists, the quantity exists, and the mental thought exists. Yet a physical lump of dirt and an invisible thought share almost no actual characteristics. This linguistic paradox is the starting point for what the Greek philosopher Aristotle called first philosophy, a field we now know as ontology. Ontology is the study of being qua being. That means examining things simply as they exist. Most sciences carve out a highly specific slice of the universe. Biologists study living organisms. Physicists study matter and motion. But the ontologist zooms all the way out to ask what it means to say that any of those things are there at all. Unless we map exactly how different things occupy reality, we risk misunderstanding both the physical universe and the language we use to describe it. To build that map, the ontologist has to start with a primary task, creating an inventory of reality. A simple catalog listing every individual object, every single rock, every single tree, every single human would take an eternity to compile and tell us almost nothing about how reality is structured. So Aristotle proposed grouping existence into broad categories. He started with the physical subject, a self-contained entity, like an individual human being. Next, he identified quality as an entirely separate category. This covers the invisible traits a subject possesses, like a person's wisdom or the dark color of the clay. Then comes quantity. This category measures the subject's dimensions, defining whether a person is 6 feet tall or a container holds 2 liters of water. He also defined relation to explain situations where existence requires interaction between 2 distinct things, like a physical push between a man and a heavy stone. Realizing that an object is an entirely different class of reality than an event or a property is the necessary first step to decoding how the universe operates. However, this flat list of categories has a severe limitation. It tells us what is out there, but it ignores the architecture of dependency holding it all together. Think about the physical act of running. A run cannot exist floating in the void on its own. It absolutely requires a host, a runner, to occur. This hierarchy tree shows the second major job of the ontologist, finding the anchor. This is the primary foundation that all secondary categories rely upon to survive. Aristotle called this core anchor substance, or ousia. He explained it using a medical analogy. We can call a healthy diet medical and a surgical scalpel medical. Neither is a doctor, but their meanings are pulled into essential core because they both point back to the practice of medicine. Secondary categories like qualities, quantities, and times operate the exact same way. They only exist in reality because they point back to and depend upon a primary substance. For Aristotle, these core anchors were individual physical things, like a specific horse or a specific tree. But his teacher, Plato, argued the exact opposite, proposing that the true anchors were actually immaterial forms, existing completely outside of physical space. Thousands of years of ancient philosophical debate center on a single dispute over the exact identity of this ultimate anchor. That ancient debate dictates the assumptions embedded in your daily speech right now. Linguists and philosophers call this concept ontological commitment. It is the idea that the grammar of our language accidentally forces us to claim that invisible things exist. Consider what happens when you say 2 friends share the same health. By using that specific phrasing, the structure of the sentence logically forces you to admit that a universal, invisible object called health actually exists somewhere in reality for them to share. Which brings us back to the physical reality of the ancient pottery sitting at the front of the lecture hall. Ontology serves as an invisible blueprint. It forces us to draw a line in the sand, deciding precisely what is a mere shadow of language and what is undeniably real.